Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome to episode 7 of the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything going on in the industry. As always, I'm joined by Jordan.
What is up, dudes?
And Dominic.
Good afternoon, Jared.
So, we're going to be getting straight into the news, guys. The first story comes by way of Jason Schreier over at Kotaku. If you didn't hear, Blizzard was hit with multiple DDoS attacks. They're never a good thing for any company to have to endure. If you have a Blizzard account, make sure you reset your password just in case any security breaches happened. But Jason Schreier writes, players couldn't log into games like World of Warcraft and Diablo 3 for several hours last night thanks to a series of DDoS attacks that flooded Blizzard's servers. The developer said, Blizzard says they've since thwarted the problem, though some login issues could linger this morning. DDoS, which stands for Distributed Denial of Service, refers to an intentional torrent of traffic that's designed to cripple a company's servers. I'm not going to go into the rest of that definition, but Blizzard had a statement stating, these attacks are just flooding our internet tubes. No actual account information, payment information, or character data is at risk, said Blizzard support agent Glaxygrav. I guess that's his code name. Even though he says this, personally, I suggest you guys go and reset your passwords and get all that stuff set, because a lot of times these companies think that things weren't accessed when in reality something can happen a couple of months from now where everybody's information got out. So just for your safety, whether or not the information did get out, I highly suggest resetting your passwords just for your safety. What are you guys' thoughts on this crazy DDoS attack that Blizzard had to endure?
Well, for one, I think that's good advice, Jared. It's really not even a bad idea to just reset your passwords every now and then anyways. So
no matter what, yep.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this these past couple of years with all these attacks happening, especially like the Christmas attacks on both PlayStation and Xbox. Are they ever going to figure out a way to stop these? I get the fact that, it's kind of just like a traffic jam via the internet, but it's almost like I feel as though they could see what, if they were monitoring the system, they could see what's happening and then shut down certain channels to keep them from coming through. I don't know. It's just, these are starting to happen often enough. I'm wondering if people will start figuring out ways to stop them.
It's crazy to me that these hackers or whoever it is, that basically they're outsmarting these giant companies.
Oh yeah.
Like every time, each time the company learns, whoever it is, how to prevent that, get that same type of thing.
Yeah.
Then a couple of months later, there's a new vulnerability is found somehow.
And they do it with such a primitive style too.
I think it's a preventative thing, right? So like being able to pay these guys to prevent these kind of attacks, like getting people to make an infrastructure that's a lot safer and secure, costs money. And I think a lot of times these companies are, instead of what's the worst that can happen, and they don't take those kind of measures to get that kind of security. And then once something happens, then they do the whole hindsight thing of then they pay for the added security and fixing,
Yeah.
It's like when you go to like a cheap like convenience store and they get robbed and you're like, oh, of course you got robbed. You didn't have any security cameras. Then from that point on, guess what they have installed? Security cameras. It's kind of like they try to save money to the point where they have to spend money. I agree with you. These attacks have been happening way too frequent. It's crazy that somebody like Blizzard was attacked. I mean, nobody's safe, but Blizzard is a big enough company that you would assume that they'd have some kind of safety measures in place, especially with their whole like Battle.net system. Like, people access that system specifically to launch games, and when these kind of things happen, it takes down everything. It's kind of like nowadays, if you don't have your console set to, for Xbox anyways, if you don't have your console set to be your home console, if some kind of infrastructure goes down or your internet personally goes down, you can't play any of your games. So these, especially in a day and age where everything's online, these attacks need to be reduced, greatly in order for, everything to move forward, I think.
Well, even more so for PlayStation. I was just thinking about that before you brought it up with Xbox, about the home console thing and being able to play offline with digital games. But on PlayStation, even if it is your primary console and, if you turn your PlayStation on without ever having it hooked up at the time, then you're not going to be able to play your downloaded digital games because it has to authenticate with the server every time you try to get into these digital files. So there's not even a solution on PlayStation, and I know I'm all digital on my PS4 and Vita, so if I don't have internet, then I'm basically screwed.
I think, especially since we're in a day and age where everything is going digital, this needs to be a huge concern.
Jordan, so apparently there's a setting that you can go in and manipulate.
Okay.
Basically make that not an issue. So that's there. So there is a way to turn that off, I've heard recently.
Okay, let's talk about that later. I need to know.
Yeah.
So our next story is about Stardew Valley, the everybody's favorite game on PC. People are flocking to this game. They love it. It's drawn comparisons to, you know, Harvest Moon and Animal Crossing and all these games people love. It actually sold 1 million copies. The story comes over from Game Informer via Javi Gwaltney, 100% saying his name wrong. And it's surprising that this game sold 1 million copies. People love this game. I wasn't sure if this was a game that was going to sell very well. I thought it was going to be a game that people loved, but necessarily maybe didn't get commercial success. I don't know how well Undertale sold, but people loved that game as well. So basically what he states is if there's one thing the last 2 months has taught people, people love farming. Tangling with townfolk and fishing, okay, maybe not so much that last part. A lot of them apparently, since publisher Chucklefish Games just reportedly confirmed to Polygon in an email that Stardew Valley has sold over 1 million copies since its launch on February 26th. According to the email, the exact number is 1,007,000. Though the game is PC exclusive right now, creator Eric Barone revealed to us a while back that he wanted Stardew Valley on consoles as soon as possible. So, it seems like they're taking the Minecraft approach. You know, a game sells really well on PC, obviously has a huge thought share. If you put it on consoles, it's probably going to sell just as well. This seems like a game that'll sell very well. It's very accessible. It's very kid-friendly, which also helps with sales. I could definitely see this game. Nothing will ever reach Minecraft numbers the same way, but I definitely think this game's going to be a success on consoles. I'm really intrigued because this game has caught my attention. What do you guys think? Do you think this game can match its numbers when it releases on consoles? Are you surprised they hit 1 million copies, period?
Yeah, that's a huge surprise. I mean, I knew everyone loved it, but 1 million's pretty solid just on PC, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think it has potential to blow up on consoles, I think.
And this is sold. There are plenty of people who have pirated this game, you know, just how the industry is. This is sold, so...
The one thing I definitely want to shout out is the fact that the company's called Chucklefish. I really like that.
Right? That's awesome.
And then, other than that, I've just been... Ever since this game came out, all over the internet, people have been talking about it, making videos about it, playing it, loving it, so... Yeah, it's definitely a success story. I like to hear that.
Jordan, imagine if this was on Vita.
I could do that. See, like, I've been looking at it, and I've been saying, it looks all right, but it's not necessarily what I want. But that is what I want on Vita. That would be awesome.
I think it'd be cool, you know. I think it could thrive on mobile platforms. It will sell on consoles, and people will play it. But it seems like a game that's digestible enough in short spurts that it beckons mobile, right?
Yeah.
I would love to see this thing on 3DS in its vast library. I would love to see it on Vita as well. It's just cool, you know, when people make awesome games, the more people it can reach, the better, right? If you know, there's plenty of people who don't have gaming PCs or PC that see this game and they're like, oh, I would love to play that game. I love playing Harvest Moon on my GameCube that only 3 other people owned. Like, I loved, you know, I love these type of games. And now that it's going to be coming to consoles, hopefully more people will be able to play this game that millions or a million people loved. So now we're getting deep into the E3 news as far as conferences being announced. We have 2 conferences being announced and some leaks. So the first press conference reveal is from IGN, and it comes from Chloe Rad, and she basically talks about how Microsoft's announced their E3 press conference times. No surprise, they're taking one of the earliest times. On Monday, June 13th, they're going to be having their presentation at 9:30 Pacific time, 12:30 Eastern time. So a nice little lunch there for you guys on the East Coast to be able to enjoy this announcement. Not too surprising. They have a lot of announcements. I'm interested to see what exactly is going to be for their press conference because, you know, a lot of these individual companies are having their own press conferences, so it's kind of interesting what they're going to show. They have their exclusives like Recore, Crackdown 3, Halo Wars 2. Are you guys excited for those games? I know neither of you guys... Well, Jordan, you own an Xbox One, but you guys are more PlayStation guys. Are you interested to see what Microsoft has to show this year at E3?
I think there's something we don't know about. I mean, we already have PSVR announced. Probably NX is going to be announced at this time. Where does that leave Microsoft? I mean, obviously they'll have plenty of games to show, but I think there's something hardware-wise that Microsoft is going to pull out of their back pocket that no one's going to see coming. I have no idea what it is. I don't think they're going to have their own VR headset or anything like that. But
it works. They have HoloLens, but I think they learned last year that just showing HoloLens and then letting it be until it actually is viable for commercial use. I don't think that will be there. It'll be there in some capacity, obviously, but I don't think it's going to be a conference hit. And if anything, it's going to be a murmur, like a little 5-minute kind of thing. I do agree with you that there might be something that we don't know about. Phil Spencer said they're not doing the Xbox One and a half. I agree with you, though. It seems like in a year where we're going to be having potentially the PS4K announced, obviously PSVR, and then the NX, unless they take the route of all games, like, you know, that's what people want. That's what people shit on Microsoft for, is they didn't talk about games enough. Do you think they'll just be games, Jordan? Do you think that's going to be their pitch? Do you think they're even going to have hardware?
Well, I definitely think we're going to get a lot of Gears 4 at E3 from them.
Yep.
That's going to be their big point. But other than that, I hope we see more of Recon. I hope we see more of the Platinum. What's the Platinum exclusive that they've got?
Oh, Scalebound?
Scalebound, yes, which has been delayed till next year, but I still think we should at least see it at this E3. Yeah, I definitely think there's something that we don't know about, because Recore is probably not coming out this year. Scalebound's not coming out this year.
Halo Wars 2 might come out this year.
Yeah, that'll be something big at their conference, but then, you know, like last year, Fable Legends was there, and that's obviously not going to be a thing this year, so...
Rest in peace.
Yeah, I think Microsoft's going to have some stuff that we don't know anything about. Phantom Dust is another one that would have been there that isn't going to be there this year.
Yeah, definitely. So, you know, Microsoft has... Well, they'll probably have something up their sleeve. All these companies do. Another company, and this comes by way of GameStop, from Timur Hussein, definitely saying that name wrong again. Ubisoft has announced their E3 press conference, and it'll be taking place at 12:30 p.m. Pacific time. So 3 hours after the Microsoft press conference. You know, there's not going to be any Assassin's Creed this year. There's going to be, you know, rumors of obviously Watch Dogs 2 and stuff like that. Tom Clancy's Wildlands. There might be something with The Division, some kind of substantial DLC. I don't know. Also, South Park: The Fractured Butthole. Greatest name. And a game that I've forgot about the last couple of episodes we've been talking about, Ubisoft, For Honor. The sword fighting game, which looks beautiful. So they have, you know, Monday, June 13th, 12:30. They have the save the date. What are you guys most looking forward to with Ubisoft? I know there's not going to be an Assassin's Creed game this year, sadly. Jordan, I know that really breaks your heart. Yeah. But, you know, what else are you guys looking forward to? Do you guys think they'll have, like, their Ubisoft indie art kind of game? Their Ubi art games?
Well, now, the whole Assassin's Creed thing, if it wasn't the Assassin's Creed franchise, we know it's not coming out this year, probably next fall. But, you know, if that was like a new Far Cry game and it wasn't coming out this year, they would probably still talk about it at E3, right?
They might show something.
Yeah, I guess I was wrong in saying there won't be anything. There will definitely be a teaser.
I don't think you're necessarily wrong, because, you know, they may not want to take up time with Assassin's Creed if that's not even coming out this year and they have games coming out this year that they could show. But, you know, for most publishers, I would say, oh, well, we've got this game coming out next fall, let's show it at this E3. So I think it's kind of just a weird situation with the whole Assassin's Creed deal. It could go either way, I guess.
Real quick, I think Bethesda's changed the landscape of these announcements with the way they handled Fallout 4. I think that they saw the fervor that people had for a game being announced and being launched the same year, a couple of months later. Yeah. Like, I think they noticed that people are getting tired of this, oh yeah, that's the game I saw 2 years ago, Watch Dogs. I think that people definitely just want to see stuff and then play stuff. And I think a lot of these companies are starting to realize that, and they're coming to terms with, we don't have to show everything. We can show the things that are coming soon, and when we want to show the things that are coming out sooner, then we can show them then. I think Bethesda did a huge thing to change the landscape of these announcements. Sorry, though, what were we going to say, Dom?
No, I think you're right. I think that's the route they're going to go with Watch Dogs 2. I mean, we've said it before, and that being said, they're going to jam it down our throats at this E3, right? Because they're going to want to make up as much of the missed, you know, marketing time they would have had if they announced it earlier. So yeah, if that's happening and it's happening this fall, then there's going to be a ton of Watch Dogs 2, and it'll probably be playable, and they'll have demos, and I would imagine that's how that's going to go. Personally, though, I'm most excited for something from South Park. Stick of Truth was awesome, and it was hilarious, and just you saying the
Fractured
title of this
Butthole.
exactly, just you saying the title made me chuckle. So I'm pumped for that.
I think in order from 1, 2, 3, I think the biggest things will be Watch Dogs 2, then For Honor, then South Park, and then after that, you'll have like Division DLC and stuff like that.
Well, people are sleeping on the Ghost Recon game, Wildlands.
Yeah, that's true. I keep forgetting about that because that's another thing you were talking about, like when games are mentioned at E3 and then you don't see them for 2 years. That's kind of, this Ghost Recon game is kind of like that, where last year we see it at E3, like this CG trailer, and then they just don't say anything for the entire next year.
Yeah, I think that it looked cool. As a CG trailer, it looked cool. I still don't know what it is. It's Ghost Recon, so it's going to have an audience, obviously. It's Tom Clancy, so it's going to have an audience. I just want to know what the whole Wildlands thing is. I love the games like Destiny and Division. Like, I've spent numerous hours in Division, and I love those games. But I don't want it to get oversaturated because it's enough time sinking time into those games to get anything good. I just don't want this to be a trend where it's these games you have to pour so much time into, and it's not from a point of Fallout 4 of getting more and more of a solid experience. It's I need to play to level up to get this gear so I can fight this thing, so I can do this,
Yeah.
A breadcrumb of stuff, and I hope it's more of the old Ghost Recon games, but we'll see. Ubisoft, they make a lot of good games. Recently they've made a lot of good games that actually work at release, which is good. I think we'll see some kind of Mass Effect Andromeda-esque thing where it's maybe an image, maybe we get a title, maybe we get a picture of the main protagonist, not his face obviously, but his assassin getup. It might be something super minimal, where it's enough of a tease. But like we stated, I don't know if necessarily that's something they want to do with the way audiences are changing the way they want these announcements to be made. The last thing is with Nintendo's announcements this year. It came by way of the Know over on YouTube from a couple of sources. You can find them all over the internet through Reddit and Twitter. Basically, a confirmed source has come out and said, and she's been right about a lot of other things with Nintendo, that the NX launch lineup will be The Legend of Zelda. It'll be a port of Smash. She says those are definitive. Those are 100% going to be two of the launch titles. There's two other games that are going to be in the launch window. They could be launch titles, but depending on how fast they're ported over, they could be launch window games. And that is Super Mario Maker and Splatoon. Splatoon sold over 1 million copies, right? I believe it did. It's one of the better selling games on that system. And, so it's basically going to be port the launch. Obviously, there's going to be some other titles that we don't know about that are going to be, NX exclusives. But it seems like a lot of these, or majority of these launch games are going to be ports. How do you guys feel about this? How do you think the Nintendo fans who bought the Wii U and having to give into this new console are going to feel that a lot of the games at launch are just going to be ports of games they already own?
Well, and I mentioned this last week or 2 weeks ago talking about even if it is only 10 million people that have Wii U's, they're still going to feel burned when the NX comes out and this console's only been around for 3 or 4 years. And they have to buy a whole new console, all new games, or, remastered version of the games they just bought for Wii U. They got to buy all new accessories and all this stuff. It's like, man, those people are going to be pissed. And those are the people that were the hardest of hardcore Nintendo fans.
Yeah. Dom, you had a point about these games being ported over, that it could give indication as to the NX's controller and stuff like that.
Right. So assuming Mario Maker and Splatoon, now that I think about it, I guess Splatoon could function with a regular controller though, but Mario Maker for sure, if that's ported over, that kind of confirms that there's going to be some sort of touch input on their controller, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise that game doesn't really work the way it's intended.
Well, so another rumor in this actual video is talking about, the whole thing, people are speculating that this works in congruence with a mobile device. The rumor is that people have been thinking about this as being the controller that comes with the console, And they're thinking that maybe this isn't the case because Nintendo has gone so fully into the mobile realm that your phone will work with your console. Kind of like a Bluetooth-esque kind of way. And they're saying that it could possibly just have a good controller, normal controller, and that the touch input functions that could work with your console could be via your cell phone, your smartphone that you have. So it's an interesting way to look at it. It doesn't get in the way of gamers who want to game normally. From this source, they were talking about third-party ports. And I guess in the works, apparently, are a lot of these companies are porting over games to the NX, and a lot of them can come as early as 2017. Obviously, that's a little bit out, but if the NX launches at the end of 2016, it's going to only be a couple of months, 3 to 4 months maybe, of some games coming out and being ported over. The fact that there's a rumor, if this rumor is true, that people are porting over games and there's going to be a third-party library, that means that Nintendo's moving in a better direction. They actually... from this report as well, they changed their, I don't know the exact wording. Basically, the way the games are coded and everything, and the way the system was built, Nintendo always has an issue with third-party people porting games, right? Because it just doesn't work, I guess, the way the consoles are built. Now, I guess they're using something that both the Xbox and the PlayStation use, so it's making porting 100% easier. It's making it easier on everyone involved. What do you guys think about this NX supposedly getting huge third-party support? Do you think it'll help it?
Well, yeah, it absolutely needs it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if they launch another Wii U, then what's the point? I mean, yeah, they need the third-party support, absolutely. If, like, from the start of this generation, the Wii U had that, and the Wii U is at least a little bit more powerful. It wouldn't necessarily have to be on par with Xbox and PlayStation, but think about what that library would look like with your NX or your Nintendo exclusives and all the third-party games. I mean, to me, if that were the case, then for me personally, that would be the console I'd want to be at. The exclusives alone on Xbox and PlayStation don't stack up to the exclusives on Nintendo. For me, anyway.
Yeah, and that's barring that they have a normal controller, right, that, like, works and functions.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course.
What are your thoughts, Jordan, on this whole thing?
They need the third-party support. They had that with Wii, especially, and even a little bit with Wii U. But like you said, they were, the games had to be ported over and made a little bit different. So, versions of Madden on the Wii were different than versions of Madden on the 360 or PS3, things like that. And now they can just be the game that they already are on a different console.
Yeah, one-to-one, not having to change it drastically, like...
Right.
Yeah.
Like the whatever special edition of Batman Arkham City and stuff like that, where it just, like you said, wasn't one-to-one. But like I've mentioned before, man, these Nintendo NX rumors are just starting to kill that console. And Nintendo, I know they're just waiting around for E3, but I'm thinking that's almost going to be too late, because all these rumors are just floating around in people's heads, and eventually it's just going to get to the point where no matter what they do is not going to be good enough, and they need to control the message now, and they're not, and I think they're shooting themselves in the foot.
If these games are, I doubt it'll only launch with 2 games, but say Mario Maker and Splatoon are launch window, not launch games, and it just launches with Smash and Legend of Zelda. As much as I love Smash and as much as I love Zelda, that doesn't constitute me buying another console. And honestly, at this point, I don't know what they would have to announce for me to want to buy another console. It had to be something crazy. I don't know. It just... These rumors, like you said, are going on and on and on, and I think there comes a point, if a lot of these rumors are true, you have to control that message. Instead of waiting for your Nintendo Direct, get on the ball and say, hey, we have to make a Nintendo Direct this week or next week. We can't wait 2 months. We can't wait a month. And I'm sure Reggie and those guys see this stuff, and they're like, this is all, obviously, if stuff is true, they're like, these people are hearing about this stuff from other people. And they're basically, when you hear about something from somebody else instead of hearing it from the source directly, the story is going to be different. And even if it's the same story, all the facts are correct, the way you word it means everything, right? So I'm pretty sure Nintendo has a way of wording this which could make it seem a lot better than a random source on Twitter. I wouldn't be surprised if all this stuff is true, that we hear about a Direct happening soon if Nintendo's smart, and we don't know if they're going to be. So
You know,
I
this
don't know.
just goes back, though, to last year when they decided to make the announcement of the NX without telling you anything about it. And my God, if that wasn't one of the stupidest decisions they've made in the last 10 years. Like, we're working on another console. Go talk about it amongst yourselves and make up all these huge expectations inside of your head. We have no information on it for you right now, so just keep guessing until you get the announcement in a year and a half. Like,
But is that worse than no one talking about Nintendo at all and then being irrelevant as the Wii U fades away and games? You know what I mean?
maybe, but I think they could have just come out with a bang this year and said, you know what, we screwed up with the Wii U, but we got your game console that you want to play with a real controller right here, baby. But no, they're like, just tell you that it exists and then allow you to figure it out on your own and look at all these, like patents and rumors from the industry and developers, and it's just right now it's a mess, and they haven't even showed you don't know anything about it, and it's already a mess. So
before we get in too bad of a mood and before we jump into the other topic, let's talk about what we've been playing this week. I have been playing Dead Space. Finally, it's about damn time. I'm through chapter 3, which is you're getting right past the hospital wing and stuff like that. It's actually going to be my topic later on in the show. I've been playing Division, been grinding in that a little bit with my friends, and I've been playing Smite as always. I've got all 8 gym badges in Pokemon Yellow. Awesome.
Nice. Did
and,
you get that Abra?
Yeah. I ended up
Nice.
catching it and getting my Mew. Took me a little bit, but I actually just did what you said, and I just went and bought a bunch of Pokeballs and just threw it until I caught one.
It works.
Yeah, so Dead Space was fantastic. Just been really chill. Been watching Daredevil, season 1. I want to get to season 2, and I thought it was going to be a labor of anxiety and stuff getting through the first season just to get to Punisher, but first season's pretty good. I like it. What about you guys? What have you guys been playing?
Well, I have actually not been playing much. Like I said, last week I played a ton of games the week before last, and a little bit of everything. But also my topic later on is going to be Battleborn Beta, which I've played a little bit of that, messed around with several different characters, so we'll get into that later. Other than that, I really haven't played this week, like I said. Just been doing other stuff, I guess. What have I watched, though? Right now I'm watching Banshee. Have you guys ever heard of Banshee on Cinemax?
Nah.
Nope.
That's a really cool show. It's about this guy who gets out of jail and goes to this town called Banshee in Pennsylvania, and ends up watching this new sheriff that just rolled into town get murdered, and then decides to take over the persona of that sheriff and become the sheriff of this town.
Naturally.
And he totally does it in like a vigilante Wild West fashion. Like, since it's a small town, he kind of just has his own rules of law and does things the way he pleases and beats the crap out of criminals and stuff. So been watching that. That's a recommendation from me because I like that show a lot.
Awesome. What about you, Dom? What have you been playing?
Well, I'll tell you what, Jared. It is that time of year, April. It's time for the Stanley Cup playoffs. And, my friend, the Detroit Red Wings are in a critical matchup with the Tampa Bay Lightning. So, Game 1 didn't go so well for my boys, but we're going to bounce back in Game 2 tomorrow night. Other than hockey, I finally am able to get back into Dark Souls, in the vein of Dark Souls 3.
Yippee.
Which just came out this week, so that's going to be my topic later in the show, so we'll get into a little more detail about it then. So, yeah.
Oh, awesome. So, that's what we've been playing this week. Jordan, you mentioned you've been playing the Battleborn Beta. I have as well. What exactly is your topic?
So, yeah, the Battleborn Beta is my topic. Kind of just, I guess we can talk about our experiences with it, Jared, but also all three of our excitement levels with the game, if we're interested in it at all. Yeah, so my first impressions, played a couple hours total of it, and split that time between 4 different characters. Started with Oscar Mike, who's kind of just the standard military guy, and that's pretty much the closest thing to kind of just like playing Borderlands, since they're the same developer. Then after that, I switched to Miko, which is like the mushroom head with the throwing knives.
The healer, yep.
Yeah, and he has healing powers, yes. And then after that, I did what's her name? It's the witch with 4 arms. It doesn't even matter what her name is, but she's got she's pretty cool. She does, obviously magic powers and has 4 arms, so she kind of has she's like throwing magic powers at people pretty quickly. And then finally I played with Thorn, who is the huntress with the bow and arrow. And I like the characters. I'd say my least favorite was Miko, just because it wasn't really suiting my fancy, and the knives, I didn't think you could throw them fast enough to really like get in a groove. And then my favorite was probably Thorn, even though she's kind of rough in like really close combat situations, because the trying to pull the bow back and shoot. She is great for long range to medium range, and you can shoot the bow like really quick, or you can like charge it up and get more power out of it. As far as just the gameplay goes, it does, it has echoes of Borderlands, but it's not just like a copy or anything like that. I wouldn't say I've had enough to know whether like I really like the game. Wouldn't say I've played enough to know that or not. But it's an enjoyable experience, and to me, I think it's going to come out in the Metacritics in like the high 80s. And for me, I think I'm interested in it, and I want to play it, but I'm not going to be there day one. I'll probably wait until it's like, on sale for $30 or $40, something like that.
So I think we came at this in 2 different directions. Not only that you play on PS4 and I play on Xbox, but I have probably the biggest MOBA experience out of all 3 of us, right? By no means am I an expert, but I think I play MOBAs a lot more than either of you do, if at all. So the way I came into this game was, 1, I wanted to see if the characters were good. So the whole point of like a MOBA-esque style game is that there's a character for every playstyle, and that kind of lends to you saying you didn't really like Miko, he wasn't your playstyle, and you liked other characters. Thorn is the generic ADC character, and there's nothing wrong with that. In Smite, it's Neath. There's just these characters that are easy for newer players to get in and use, and they're fun and they're good. Obviously, like you said, she's a hunter, so she's obviously not great at short range. That's what melee characters are for. So the whole fact that they have different, characters with different playstyles is great. It definitely hits the mobile players' kind of mentality when they jump into these type of games. I had a couple of things I didn't like about the game. I'll get into what I liked first. Jordan, did you have a chance to play the story mission?
Yeah, so that's the only thing I did. I wasn't playing online or playing co-op or anything, just because I played offline story because I figured that's like what I'm going to be playing when I play the game. That's how I play Borderlands, is by myself, offline, type of thing. So
yeah,
I didn't even touch online or anything.
Oh, wow, interesting. So for me personally, I think that's the only way this game is going to succeed, is if it gets, a strong online presence. The story was cool. I liked it. They have really good voice acting. A couple of the characters are actually voiced by the guy who voiced Piccolo and a lot of other characters that you'd know. I forgot his name, but he's done plenty of voice work. You'll recognize him when you hear his voice in that game. The story was cool. I don't think it was anything like substantial. It's what I was expecting. It's in the Borderlands style-esque thing where it's like, a story, but there's a lot of comedy in it. As far as the multiplayer goes, it was solid. It ran smooth. The game modes were kind of lackluster. They were so the 2 game modes they have in that are basically an objective-based game where you have a line of objectives and you have minions coming out, and you have to slowly make your way to their side of the map. It's kind of like a give-and-take relationship. And the other one is where you have to get minions to their side of the map slowly over the course of time. So they're essentially the same thing, but not really. One's kind of like Arena and Smite. The other one's a little bit more Conquest-y or League of Legends-esque. My problem with the game, I have a couple issues with it, is 1, I don't think it necessarily fits I don't think their pricing is appropriate for the kind of genre they're getting into. I think they're still looking at this as a Borderland-esque type of game. And when you talk about Borderlands, you talk about the story and playing with your friends or playing by yourself, right? It's all about the story. The multiplayer is cool and everything, but it's co-op multiplayer. It's not really against each other. With this, the $60 price point doesn't make sense to me as it being the only price avenue for it. A lot of other MOBA-esque type games, they have a free-to-play entry level where people can get in. There's only a very limited amount of things you can do in characters, but it lets people get a feel for the game, kind of like a beta. The thing is if it's only going to have a $60 price point and not have a free-to-play entry level, I don't think it might not succeed necessarily. I disagree with you that it'll come out with high 8s or 8s in general. I think it's going to be a very average scored game. There's nothing here that constitutes it being special in the mobile realm. A lot of these games are coming out and they're kind of all relatively the same. You have to have something either special or way to build community, right? You can't build community if you have a $60 entry point. A lot of other MOBAs have free to play, which means that building a community is a lot easier.
Yeah, but see, you're definitely looking at it as a MOBA, and I'm definitely not. Like, I don't really see it that way. I don't think they're trying to market it that way. I don't think, like, the game structure is set up like that. I think it's not necessarily open world, it's just, like, open level, but I think it's more of a Destiny Division type than it is a League of Legends or Dota type.
I would definitely have to disagree with you on that point, simply for the fact that the way they market this game is all about the heroes in the game, and that's how you market a MOBA, is all about these different characters you can choose. And there's a bunch of them. Just on the cover, there's like 40 of them.
Think about Borderlands. I think that's just like the whole character thing. It's not even like a hero shooter or a MOBA. It's really just the character choices coming out of Borderlands, where you had 4 characters with different powers and abilities, and they felt different when you played. And here they're just trying to like open up that variety even more. I think it has MOBA elements, but I don't know that that's what they're going for.
I think this is completely multiplayer centric. The fact that the story is the third option on the beta, the first 2 options are multiplayer. It's 5v5 combat. It's essentially MOBA. Like, I understand that they're probably going to have a lot more solid of a story and more coherent of a story than any MOBA, really. And I think that'll definitely lend to the fact that it's going to have a lot more longevity, and it might justify the $60 price point. From a MOBA perspective, though, I don't see a lot of MOBA players getting involved in this. I think it's going to be a lot of, Borderlands fans, and I think the multiplayer will die off super quick. I don't think it won't have an esports scene at all. I just don't think that anybody who's willing to put in the time to get good at a multiplayer game is going to sacrifice it on this game, especially with Overwatch coming out, which seems like a lot more polished of a multiplayer experience. I think this will sell as a story-driven game, but if they plan to make this like an esports thing or make it a MOBA thing, I don't think it's going to... It won't sell, I don't think. It just seems like they're trying to merge 2 different games, really.
Yeah, that's definitely true, but I see them going more the Borderlands route than the MOBA route.
They should switch their marketing for that then, because it seems like their marketing
they don't know how to market this game. That's
yeah, I agree with you on that. They don't. The story was phenomenal. Love the story. All my negatives come from the multiplayer and it trying to be something it's not. And I think it's just trying to pull itself in 2 different directions.
Give us the outsider's perspective here, Dom.
Yeah.
I think from what I've gathered here and recently, which is not much, but I think, it seems like it has an identity problem, right?
Yeah.
So from what Jared's saying, it probably won't succeed as a MOBA. I mean, that, it's not going to steal a bunch of players from the MOBA
like
market,
a MOBA-esque
right?
game, yeah.
Yeah, and obviously with the price point, they're not targeting the MOBA market because, like you mentioned, free to play is just really one of the. It seems like the best way to go
to
about
build a
getting into
community,
that. Right? But yeah, the marketing I've seen, it kind of gives me the same MOBA sense, I guess. But it depends what they're trying to do with this and how they're gonna, how they measure success. Maybe they won't have a ton of people playing multiplayer for very long, but if they sell enough copies at $60 a pop, then. Maybe they're just trying to like throw them both at the wall and see which sticks, I guess, too. Who knows?
The problem with the marketing is like, so all the marketing is like MOBA this, MOBA that, MOBA this, right? I haven't really seen anything about the story. The story is really cool. The story's funny. It's a Gearbox story. Like, it's a really funny story. My friends and I were playing, we were laughing, like genuine laughing out loud. And the multiplayer was second thought to me. Like, I honestly, they should change their marketing to make it about the story. The story's cool. Like, you learn lore about these characters, like the mushroom guy Miko, about how, like, he got his head cut off and he grew it back, and, like, he healed a guy, and, like, there's all of this really cool story stuff that a lot of people who think it's a multiplayer game aren't even going to care two shits about. It's the people who see this as a Gearbox game with a cool story and a good time, like Jordan sees it, that are going to enjoy this game. I think people who see it as a multiplayer game, and that's what the marketing is doing, they're going to get in, they're not going to like it, and they're going to get out. And it sucks because I think that it's a problem. It's an identity crisis, really, I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, and it's comparing this to Destiny might help because, you know, Destiny, everyone wanted to call it an MMO, but like it was like Bungie wouldn't let you call it an MMO. They were just so against that. And I think that's how it is with Battleborn and Gearbox, and either being a MOBA or a hero shooter. I think Gearbox is really trying to say no, that's not what it is because that isn't what it is. It's not. It's really like if you're a MOBA player and you just boot this game up without knowing much about it and start playing, you're probably not gonna just fall in love with it. So
nope.
They're definitely trying to go for the console players because I know you play Smite on consoles, Jared, but
yeah,
for the most part, like MOBAs are played on PC, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, and the reason that is because a lot of them are top-down, click-based, like a League. Smite is third-person action, which gives it a hand to console gamers because you're used, especially Xbox gamers, you're used to the third-person perspective from your Gears of Wars and stuff. And this game's first-person, and it looks beautiful. And like you said, I think that does lend a hand to it being a console game, like for console gamers.
Yeah, I was going to say, are there first-person MOBAs out there?
Not that I can think of, no. A lot of them, like 80% of them are click-based over the top.
Right.
There was another third-person one. I forgot what it was called, but it wasn't important because I forgot the name of it. This whole realm of like MOBAs, it's getting so oversaturated that you forget a lot of them. There's only a couple that remain, you know. So
it'll be interesting to see. Maybe it's not so much how Gearbox presents this game, but more how the audience accepts it. Is the audience going to buy this game and walk into it thinking they're getting kind of a Borderlands co-op multiplayer experience, or are they expecting the MOBA experience and then being disappointed? It'll, I think, depend on the audience a lot.
It's going to compete with two other games too. Paragon, which is strictly a MOBA. Game looks beautiful. That's also on PS4. And Overwatch. Like, Overwatch does everything this game tries to do multiplayer-wise and is better. 100%.
But yeah, I don't know that it's trying to beat Overwatch as much as people think it is. You know?
Well, this is a whole identity crisis. I don't necessarily think the Gearbox guys are trying to compete with Overwatch, but marketing makes it look like it is. Marketing makes it look like it's a hero shooter, like it's a MOBA-esque game. They need to market it more towards its story. That's a big issue here. It's not that it's trying to compete with them. It's that their marketing is stating that it's trying to compete with them. You have conflicting missions between the developer and the marketing team, is what it seems like.
I agree with that. Yeah, they should have tightened that marketing up a while ago.
And could it have a more generic name? I understand, but like, especially with everything else around it, like Battlefront and Battleborn and stuff like that, you know, Bloodborne, like it gets lost in everything. And a lot of people forget that this game was made by Gearbox, and they're a great studio that makes solid games.
Speaking of that, just one quick point. I want to say, since this game has been, since they announced this game, I've been thinking something that's really hurting this game is the fact that it looks like a store brand Borderlands.
Yeah.
It feels like a generic brand Borderlands that another company would have made. But really, it's the company that made Borderlands. Yeah,
it seems like they're trying to do the same thing but different. Like, I agree with you. It seems like it's Borderlands watered down. It looks pretty. The other game that's going to be competing with this game is Gigantic, though I don't think it's competing by any means because I got into
didn't that game like get delayed and the studio shut down and stuff?
Yeah, I played the beta, dude. This is partially vanilla when it comes to multiplayer. That game is like super vanilla. Completely forgettable.
Vanilla Ice.
The gameplay is not fun. It's just so I played it for like 20 minutes and I was like, okay, I've had enough. At least with Battleborn, I was like, oh, this is fun. Like I'm having fun. And that's to go to the point of like the multiplayer and everything. I was having fun. The game was fun, and that's a huge factor in video games. I just think that they need to fix their marketing really.
Is it a MOBA thing? One of my complaints about the Battleborn beta was the fact that it just seemed like there was like too much going on.
That's a MOBA thing.
Like there was like more than 5 different types of power-ups that you were trying to pick up. There's credits to pick up. There's not only credits, but then there's also this other like the yellow currency that you rack up. The shards. Like there's just too much going on. Plus you have, your main attacks, then you have like your
secondary, your ultimate.
Right, your power attacks, all these different things, yeah.
So, funny that you say that. So me and my friend both play Smite on the daily, and we went into this game, and since it's been marketed like a MOBA game, we went in. It obviously plays like that multiplayer-wise, even single player. I had no issues. I got in, I was dominating kids left and right, having fun. The problem is, a lot of the kids I was playing against had no idea what they were doing. Yeah. Because it's a MOBA-esque game, and the problem with MOBAs is it's a steep hill for entry, and once you get in, you're hooked and you get good at it.
Right.
But it takes commitment, and that's another thing that can hurt this game, because like I said, if the MOBA scene and community doesn't attach this game, no other multiplayer community will, because they're the only ones that will have the patience and the skill base to get good at this game and make it anything as far as multiplayer goes. They need to start marketing this as a single-player experience, because I think that we've said that over and over, but...
Well, good luck for Battleborn. I'll say
good
that
luck.
much.
The beta was fun, but we'll see what happens with it moving forward.
Well, while you guys were busy clicking around with your MOBA-de-boba games...
We're using a controller. We weren't clicking.
DualShock 4, baby.
This is the wrong impression or perception I have on MOBAs. Then I couldn't be more foreign to MOBAs. Maybe one day I should do a Colin Moriarty and play one game of League.
Don't play League. It's awful.
Says Mr. Smite.
Man, that's the other thing about MOBAs.
The problem with League is the community is very toxic, and that game... Real quick, I don't want to go into this topic too long. We've been talking forever. The problem with League of Legends is so what I've said about Smite is you can pay $35, you get every god in the game and every god in the future, right? I bought the game when there was 50 gods in the game, and there's now 74. So I've essentially gotten 24 free gods, quote unquote, right? For $35. Awesome. Each god plays completely
free
different.
For $35.
It's like you're a Hindu.
Let me explain. The way League of Legends does it, and League of Legends is way bigger and makes way more money than Smite, right? Smite is the third or fourth, I think, biggest esports video game. Obviously, League's 1, Dota's 2, I think. League of Legends doesn't have a way where you can buy all of the gods at once. Not a single way to do that.
A la carte.
They are the most microtransaction, money-hungry MOBA out there. Even Dota isn't as bad as they are. And it's interesting to me because they make the most money because the way they're thinking. I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way. I didn't like it. I don't know. I just didn't like the way they ran their whole thing. I think it's a vastly overrated game. I have a lot of issues with League of Legends. That could be a topic.
So
don't even mention League in front of Jared.
Yeah, this is exactly what I was going to say. Is I don't know anything about MOBAs, but I know that the wars between the MOBAs are huge. Yeah. Like it's Chevy versus Ford, like Dota versus League, or apparently now Smite too is like. I don't want to get in the middle of that.
That will be my discussion next week. We'll have a whole discussion about League of Legends and why I don't. We'll just get into that another time.
Oh, great. We're going to have some MOBA nerd talk.
Speaking of things that a lot of people hate, but some people love, I guess. Dom, what's your topic?
We must be talking about different things because everyone loves Dark Souls.
You'd be surprised.
Anyway, so yeah, Dark Souls 3 is going to be my topic. Came out earlier this week. I picked it up. I've only been able to put in about 4 or 5 hours or so. So, that's not a ton of time. At the end of the day, I'll probably end up putting in 60, 70 before I'm done with this game, right? But after only a couple hours, I think I put enough to get an idea of what this game is, and how it compares to the other games in the Souls series. So really quick, I played Dark Souls 2, and Bloodborne. I never did Demon Souls. That's on the to-do list, is to get a PS3 one day and go back and play Demon Souls. But anyway, Dark Souls 3 so far, I absolutely love it. It's from someone who Dark Souls 1 is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Dark Souls 2 was really good, but overall definitely disappointing. And I really like Bloodborne as well, but it's just not the same. like in Bloodborne, I missed the all the stats and all the RPG elements that kind of it got stripped down from Dark Souls. So Dark Souls 3.
There weren't enough stats in Bloodborne for you?
No, not even close. I mean, Dark Souls is about like your equip load and like trying to get the right roll speed and every like in your damage, your R1 damage for each left and right weapon and all those like obscure little statistics that even like a single number out of 100 can make a difference in how the game played. Like that stuff is what I love about Dark Souls, and that was all missing from Bloodborne.
Okay.
And then also like the amount of weapons, right? Going into how many different stats there were. There was only a handful of weapons in Bloodborne, whereas Dark Souls, there's tons of different things.
Well, wasn't Bloodborne made to be more accessible to more people? That's
right.
Why it's a little bit, yeah.
I wouldn't say accessible. It's still hard as shit, and it'll kick you in the nuts every time you play it.
The difficulty is, it doesn't shy away from the difficulty, but Bloodborne was more accessible. Like, it didn't have all those intimidating RPG elements. That
I would
it was
say
simpler.
It's still a pretty complicated RPG, in my opinion.
In the grand scheme of things, yes, but compared to Dark Souls, it's simpler.
I got you.
Yeah. So, on to Dark Souls 3. I think it's now, like, if I had to rank them in order of my favorite, favorite to least favorite, it's definitely Dark Souls 1, and then Dark Souls 3 is going to beat out Bloodborne for me, followed by Dark Souls 2, which was just kind of... It had the gameplay, but it had lots of problems. That's a topic for a different day, though. So far, Dark Souls 3 it's extremely difficult, as expected. From the music to the menus to how the game plays, it's obviously much slower than Bloodborne. And I'm glad. I was worried that they were going to have things, the action would be way sped up. You'd be rolling all over the place and flying around and dodging like you do in Bloodborne, and that's not the case here. It's probably still a little bit quicker than the original Dark Souls, but it still has that slow, monotonous feel to it where, like, if you roll, if you make one mistake, like, you're not fast enough to just roll out of the way.
Yeah.
Like you would have been in Bloodborne, right? Like, each move you have to think out much more thoughtfully before you do something than in Bloodborne, where you could zip back really quick with the B button, right? Other than that...
Circle button.
Holy shit.
Do not betray your country.
Oh, man.
B button. Yep, you're right. B button.
Do
Go
not
ahead.
betray your country, man.
So that's it. No, I'm glad you bring it up. So I play on PC. So the performance has been great for me. Frame rate's much better than what people probably experience on console. Again, another topic for another day. We can get into that sometime. But that being said, I use a 360 controller on PC because it's just easier. So for me, it was the B button. But anyway, yeah. So the performance is great. Everything's smooth. It's nice. They have this really cool Resident Evil thing going on with some of the enemies. And Jared, you and I were talking about this earlier. So the first boss you face halfway through the fight, all of a sudden the humanoid-esque boss just transforms and has this alien octopus arm. I don't even know how to describe it. Just bursts out of its head, It's one of those things. If you remember any of the enemies from like Resident Evil 4 and 5, it was, your average like zombie villager guy. But then all of a sudden after a few hits he just sprouts into something crazier.
Yeah.
So that's happening a lot in Dark Souls 3. You'll come upon a mob of just regular low-level enemies, or seemingly low-level enemies, and all of a sudden one will just transform into this huge thing, and then 2 hits you're dead. And it catches you out of nowhere. I mean, all the same tropes of Dark Souls are in this game. Like, you round a corner, and a boulder could roll on you, or one of these enemies could surprise you. Your crossbow enemies are always, up on a ledge from the battlefield, from the bridge where you're fighting 6 other guys, and you also have to dodge this fire dart from this jerk up on this, ledge above you. It's all there. It feels great. This is the first time in a while where when I'm not playing Dark Souls 3 or when I'm not playing a video game, that's all I want to be doing. Right now, I want to close my computer, tell you guys see you later, and go play Dark Souls 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so far, I'm loving this game. Probably after a couple weeks when I've put in, the 60, 70 hours that I anticipate this is going to take me, unless something, drastic changes or something goes wrong. I can't imagine I'm not gonna like this game or have anything other thoughts than this, but it's great. So
you can probably help me out with this, Dom. Since I fell in love with Bloodborne last fall, I've been thinking about going back and playing Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, and now 3. Would you recommend it to someone who... The reason I like Bloodborne is because it's so fast, because it's got that quick and fun combat. Am I going to hate Demon and Dark Souls?
I mean,
I'm okay with it being hard. I've gotten past that. I've gotten my teeth kicked in, hundreds of times in Bloodborne by this point. So
Dark Souls is slow.
right.
yeah,
but
am I going to hate the slow part?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the difficulty is the biggest barrier to entry, obviously, but
Yeah.
Yep.
the change in pace, I think, you'll have to get accustomed to it. It's
Sure.
not going to happen right away. And I don't know. Dark Souls 1 is just, it's so good. It's
The change
too
in
good.
pace isn't drastic enough to justify you not playing it.
Yeah.
It's like
Gotcha.
when we were talking about in a couple of last episodes, there's these like hallmarks in gaming that you need to go back and play, and a lot of them are classic, obviously. But as far as like games that are difficult, but they're not just difficult for difficult's sake, I think Dark Souls is a definite must play. If you liked Bloodborne, I think you'll like Dark Souls. From what I saw of Bloodborne, Dark Souls is obviously Bloodborne on crack as far as like just the imagery in that game is gorgeous. Like some of the stuff that you see in that game, obviously the graphics aren't crazy, but just some of the stuff that they conjure up in that game as far as like the loose storytelling that's not really storytelling is really cool.
Yeah, I do like that part of Bloodborne too, how the story's all shrouded in mystery and you have to go on YouTube just to figure out what's going on.
Read item descriptions and random little things.
Dark Souls has some of the coolest boss battles in a game
That's what I was
outside of
gonna
like
say.
Shadow of the Colossus. Like some of those bosses you fight in that game are so cool and so iconic and so memorable. Like, that game's so good.
There's nothing else that compares to it, in my opinion. The bosses in Dark Souls 1 are unbelievable. So even in Bloodborne, they were underwhelming to me. I mean, you got a lot of the same, those same like giant dog type creatures, but some of them were cooler. But as a whole, the bosses in Dark Souls 1 they're unbelievable. I want to like meet some of the guys on the art team and the creation teams that that come up with these monsters. It's ridiculous.
The replayability in that game is solid too because there's a lot of little things as far as items and stuff go that you might not know about your first playthrough that can make the game different. Like grinding the dragon's tail at the first part of Dark Souls, Dom, to get the spear, the dragon tail spear,
Okay.
whatever it is.
Let me throw something out there.
Okay.
And Jordan, I'll tell you this: when you do play Dark Souls 1, if you ever look up any tips, early game things or whatever, everyone is going to tell you to do what Jared's talking about right now, which is get a bow and arrow and shoot 100 arrows at this dragon on the bridge so that you can get this awesome sword really early in the game. It works, and the sword is awesome, but don't do it. It ruins the early game experience because you just get this overpowered weapon.
Yeah. I even need to get back to Bloodborne because I put 100 hours into that game, but I haven't even beat it, and I haven't finished all the Chalice dungeons, so I gotta go do that at some point, and then I'll probably start from Demon Souls and just do the whole series through.
So I think that wraps up our episode 7.
Hail Shuhei!
Amazing chest ahead.
And we'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.